The arrival. No one knew who he really was. They called him the Quiet One, a shadow passing through the streets of the old city. But the stories, oh, the stories were darker than anyone could imagine. His name was Adrian, and Adrian wasn't just strange. He was something else entirely. It was 1987 when Adrian moved into the neighborhood. He rented a small, dilapidated apartment above the bakery at the corner. People noticed the way he avoided sunlight, even in passing. Windows drawn, curtains heavy. At first they thought him a recluse, then the whispers started. The bakery cat went missing. Neighbors reported strange noises at night, soft footsteps, metallic clinks, and sometimes a low, unearthly growl. No one suspected the truth. Not yet. Adrian's eyes were what unsettled people most. Not the color, though they were a piercing shade of gray, but the way they seemed to see inside your chest, through the bones, past the skin, into the place where your fear lived. He moved silently. Even when the street was crowded, he felt alone. He never smiled fully, never laughed. Occasionally a nod, polite, distant, like someone observing humanity as an experiment. The first victim appeared within weeks. A man named Thomas, curious and foolish, followed the faint glow from Adrian's apartment window one rainy night. What he saw changed the trajectory of the neighborhood forever. Adrian hunched in the shadows, a figure like smoke. His movements were unnatural, human but not entirely. His eyes reflected light in ways that shouldn't have been possible. Thomas never returned. Some said Thomas ran away, others whispered of blood. The neighbors dared not ask. Fear had begun to settle like a heavy fog. By the end of the month, Adrian's reputation was whispered, not spoken. The Quiet One, the Pale Man, he comes out at night. Each tale darker than the last, each rumor carrying a hint of truth. Adrian, however, carried on, calm, polite, human on the surface, predator beneath. The mask. Adrian's charm was subtle. He was polite, educated, often disappeared for days without explanation. At night, he roamed the streets alone, silent as the wind through abandoned alleys. The city had seen its share of murders, disappearances, and strange cults, but Adrian didn't belong to any of them. He operated in the spaces between fear and disbelief. He frequented cafes, bookstores, and libraries. Always alone, he was observed reading books on human anatomy, history of disease, and folklore. People considered him eccentric, harmless, yet the darkness followed him, a lingering aura. The cats that brushed against him vanished. The elderly lady across the hall reported hearing whispers in a language she couldn't recognize, only when Adrian passed her window. His neighbors noticed small details, blood that appeared inexplicably on his clothing, then gone by morning, shadows that seemed taller than him, stretching unnaturally, smells of iron in the hallways. Still, Adrian smiled occasionally, just enough to feel human, enough to mask the predator. First encounter. It was a damp October evening when Detective Mark Reynolds first heard of Adrian. A series of disappearances in the neighborhood were being investigated. Thomas was only the first. Mark visited the apartment and Adrian answered politely. Hands long, nails sharp, eyes gray and unnervingly still. "I don't know anything," he said, calm, courteous, innocuous. But something in the room changed Mark's breath. An instinct, deep and irrational, whispered, "This man is dangerous." Mark left uneasy. That night he couldn't sleep. He kept seeing shadows in the corners of his apartment. He kept hearing faint sounds, metallic clinks, soft footsteps, something wet hitting the floor. By midnight, the first true horror became apparent. A neighbor discovered a body behind the bakery, mutilated but strangely preserved. The wounds precise, deliberate, the body drained of blood. The term vampire was whispered for the first time. Part IV, shadows in the alley. The city at night was different. Shadows moved where there should have been none. The wind carried whispers, faint and indecipherable. Adrian thrived here among the damp bricks and flickering street lamps. Detective Mark Reynolds walked these streets now with caution. Something primal told him Adrian was no ordinary man. Every instinct screamed stay away, yet duty pushed him closer. The alley behind the bakery had become a shrine of sorts for fear. The walls bore scratches, long, deliberate, as if something had been trying to communicate or perhaps to warn. Trash bins overturned, the scent of iron faint but unmistakable. Adrian appeared suddenly, as though the darkness had formed him into human shape. His eyes caught Mark's under the flickering lamp. Calm, cold, calculating. "You shouldn't be here," Adrian said softly. The words were polite, almost tender, yet carried an invisible weight. "I'm not afraid of you," Mark replied, though his voice wavered. Adrian smiled faintly. "Fear isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, like the moment before a heartbeat stops." Mark knew then that Adrian wasn't bluffing. Part V, The Secret of the Blood. Adrian's apartment was a museum of the macabre. Shelves lined with jars of dark liquid, some preserved in strange ways, some glowing faintly under dim lights. Books of anatomy, folklore, and occult practices covered every surface. Mark had never seen anything like it, and yet there was no chaos, everything meticulously arranged. The air smelled faintly of iron and candle smoke. Adrian spoke of things no human should know. Diseases that defied medicine, rituals that altered perception, bloodlines that carried curses or gifts depending on who drank from them. "People think I am a monster," Adrian said one night, seated across a table from Mark, "but I am merely honest. I do what others dream of but cannot admit." Mark didn't respond. He was afraid of saying the wrong thing, afraid of saying anything at all. Part VI, The Transformation. Stories began circulating. How Adrian only left the apartment after sunset, how the city seemed quieter when he moved through it. Animals, even the smallest birds, avoided him. Some claimed that their reflection in mirrors distorted when he passed, shadows bending unnaturally. Mark investigated cautiously, documenting each disappearance, each whisper, each unexplained wound or stain of blood. He started to see the pattern. The disappearances were not random. They were precise, almost surgical. Adrian did not attack recklessly. He chose his moments carefully, always ensuring that the city could remain unaware. "He is a predator," Mark noted in his journal, "but not like any I've known. Calm, controlled, and terrifyingly intelligent." Part VII, The First Confrontation. It happened on a foggy November night. Mark followed a faint trail of evidence, a cat, a torn curtain, a streak of dried blood into the underbelly of the city. Adrian was waiting as if he had known Mark would come. His eyes glowed faintly, a reflection of the foggy streetlights, almost supernatural. "You've been watching me," Adrian said, stepping from the shadows. "Why?" "To stop you," Mark said, pulling his flashlight like a weapon, though he knew it meant nothing. Adrian laughed softly, not cruelly but with the weight of inevitability. "Stop me? You cannot stop what has already begun. I am part of the city, part of the darkness it carries. You think you can fight it, but darkness is patient. It waits. It does not tire." Mark knew he had underestimated the man. The predator in front of him was far beyond any rational comprehension. Part VII, The Midnight Hunt. The city slept, but Adrian never did. He moved through the streets like a shadow given form. Silent steps, cold gaze, senses heightened. Every alley, every dark corner belonged to him. Detective Mark Reynolds tried to keep up, but it was like chasing smoke. Adrian knew the city in ways no human could. He anticipated patterns, anticipated movement, and vanished before anyone could confront him. On this night, a new victim appeared, a woman named Lila, walking home from the late library shift. Adrian observed her from above, perched like a predator in the scaffolding of a crumbling building. Her heartbeat, her fear, her small human rhythms, all known to him before she even sensed his presence. He followed quietly, letting the city's sounds mask his approach. Lila felt nothing until a chill passed over her spine. Turning, she saw a figure step from the shadows, unnaturally tall, eyes like polished steel reflecting the dim lamplight. Who are you?" she stammered, clutching her bag. Adrian tilted his head, a polite curiosity in his gaze. "I am someone you should not fear, yet." Part IX, The Encounter. Mark had been trailing Adrian for weeks, piecing together the fragmented clues, disappearances, bloodstains, whispers of a pale man moving in the night. Tonight, he followed both predator and prey, weaving through the fog-laden streets. He watched as Adrian circled Lila, calculating, waiting. The city itself seemed to hold its breath. Mark wanted to intervene, but something primal froze him. There was an aura around Adrian, something beyond human. Fear, yes, but also authority, power. Adrian crouched close enough to see Lila's terror up close, yet distant enough to seem untouchable. "Do you understand what I am?" he asked softly. Mark stepped forward suddenly, flashlight trembling in hand. "Stop! Leave her alone!" Adrian's head snapped toward him, calm as ever. You cannot stop this. It is not me you fight. It is what I represent, humanity's darkest part. The hunger, the impulse, the shadow you refuse to admit exists. Part X, blood and truth. Lila screamed, but Adrian's movements were precise, controlled. He did not strike recklessly. His eyes bored into her, but she felt no immediate harm. Mark lunged. Adrian moved faster than any human could, an inhuman blur. In one motion, he intercepted Mark, pressing him against a brick wall. Mark's flashlight fell, casting a brief, chaotic pattern of light. "You do not understand what you are facing," Adrian whispered almost gently. "I have walked this city for decades. I take only what is necessary. You call me a monster, but in truth, I am merely honest." Lila, frozen in terror, felt a strange calm come over her. His gaze, though predatory, also carried an almost hypnotic patience. She realized that fear alone did not describe him. This was something older, something eternal. When Adrian finally stepped back, Mark and Lila both gasped for air. He disappeared into the fog as silently as he had arrived, leaving behind only a trace of cold air and the faint scent of iron. Part XI, the investigation. The police were baffled. No fingerprints, no blood, nothing. Yet the trail of fear and disappearance continued. Mark wrote in his journal, "This is not a man, he is a force. Precise, patient, calculated. Every disappearance follows a pattern, a rhythm. He is not acting randomly. He is teaching us something or testing us." The city whispered again. Children reported strange, pale figures watching from windows. Elderly women smelled the scent of iron on empty streets. And Adrian continued, unseen, moving like smoke through the heart of the city, untouched by law or human comprehension. Part XII, the night whispers. The city had grown silent under the weight of fear. Adrian moved through it like a ghost, each step calculated, each breath measured. Windows rattled as he passed, shadows lined toward him. Mark Reynolds could feel the city itself conspiring against him. Every attempt to catch Adrian ended in failure. He began to understand that Adrian was not merely a man but a force, a predator that had mastered patience over decades. Reports of missing persons increased. People whispered about the pale man of the alleys, about his piercing gray eyes, about the faint metallic scent that lingered after he passed. Lila, the woman who had encountered him months before, began seeing him in her dreams, not attacking her, simply watching. Calm, observing, the kind of presence that burrows into your mind and doesn't leave. Mark interviewed her. "He's not human," she said, voice trembling. "There's a calm in him that shouldn't exist, like he's always in control of everything, even time." Adrian was everywhere and nowhere, leaving trails of unease. He became a legend among the fearful, a shadow story whispered late at night. The vampire of the city street. Part XIII, the legacy of hunger. Adrian's hunger was methodical. He didn't feed recklessly. He fed selectively, choosing individuals whose absence would barely disturb the city's rhythm. He had developed a system. Each disappearance, each carefully taken life, was balanced with a silence that stretched over the neighborhood, like an artist painting in blood and shadows. Mark started piecing it together, noticing patterns in the disappearances. The victims were all loners, individuals whose absence would not attract immediate notice. Adrian operated like a surgeon, precise and efficient. Lila's dreams grew darker. She began waking up in sweat, images of Adrian hovering over her, eyes glowing faintly, fangs catching dim light but never striking. She knew instinctively he was waiting for the right moment, for the right response, for the right fear to manifest. Part XIV, the confrontation. Night was colder than usual. Mist rolled along the cobblestones. Mark followed another clue, an abandoned rooftop with scratches in the stone. He saw him. Adrian, still calm, still silent, still human, and yet terrifyingly not. "You follow shadows," Adrian said, turning toward him, voice low and hypnotic. "But you cannot understand them. Fear is not what drives me, it is necessity, hunger, obligation, survival." Mark raised his weapon, heart pounding. "I'll stop you." Adrian smiled, faint and unreadable. "Stop me. No, detective, you are part of my story, always have been." Part XV, into the dark. Confrontation ended before it truly began. Adrian vanished into the fog, leaving only a chill behind. Mark realized that to catch him, he would need more than courage or law. It would take understanding the darkness itself. The city, oblivious to the predator in its midst, continued its nightly rituals. lights flickering, cars passing, laughter echoing through alleyways. But Adrian remained, an untraceable shadow, moving among the living with the patience of centuries. Lila's nightmares persisted. Mark's investigations intensified. And somewhere in the city, Adrian watched, waited, and fed, not out of cruelty, but out of a necessity no human could truly comprehend. Part XVI. The city sleeps uneasy. The city slept, but Adrian never did. He moved like a shadow, weaving between dimly lit streets and silent alleyways. Every night he became more of a legend, a pale figure with piercing gray eyes, known only through whispered stories. Mark Reynolds followed the trail again, piecing together the patterns. He noticed subtle things, footprints that ended abruptly, small stains of blood on rooftops, doors left slightly ajar. Adrian was meticulous, leaving no mistakes. Meanwhile, Lila's nightmares intensified. She could feel Adrian's presence even during daylight hours, an invisible tension that made the hairs on her arms rise. She began to wonder if the line between dream and reality had blurred. Mark interviewed other witnesses, noting the same pattern. The pale man appeared where least expected, silent, observing, leaving a chilling calm behind. His patience was unnerving. He was always a step ahead. Part XVI. The hunter becomes the hunted. Mark had been chasing Adrian for months, but the detective slowly realized the predator had been shaping him. Each encounter, each failed attempt, taught Mark about the nature of the darkness he pursued. One night, Mark followed a faint trail into an abandoned factory. He felt Adrian before he saw him. The air grew colder, heavier. Footsteps echoed where none should have been. "You've learned much," Adrian said, appearing from the shadows, "but knowledge does not grant safety. You still follow fear, yet fear does not follow you." Mark raised his flashlight, but it trembled in his grip. He was no longer fully certain who was hunting whom. Adrian's presence was so dominating, so unnatural, that the city itself seemed to bend around him. Part XVI. The confession. Adrian's apartment became a strange sanctuary. Mark and Lila found themselves drawn there, compelled by questions they could not voice. "I am not what you think," Adrian said one night, sitting in the dim candlelight. "I am a man shaped by necessity. My hunger is older than memory. I take only what sustains me, only what the city allows me to take without collapsing its balance." Mark studied him, noting every detail. Pale skin, long fingers, eyes reflecting centuries of knowledge and horror. "You're a vampire," Mark said, almost a whisper. Adrian's smile was faint, almost regretful. "Call it what you will. I am not here for cruelty. I am here to survive, to exist in the spaces humanity refuses to see." Lila shivered, understanding that his confession was both horrifying and strangely honest. Part XIX. The final night. City's fog thickened, streets empty. Adrian moved with purpose, following instincts older than law, older than morality. Mark followed him one last time, determined to confront the truth. Every instinct screamed leave, yet he pressed on. The confrontation occurred on a rooftop overlooking the empty streets. Adrian's presence was overwhelming, like gravity itself had shifted. "You seek to end me," Adrian said calmly, "but you cannot end what is eternal. You only delay the inevitable." Mark swallowed his fear. "Then tell me why," he demanded. "Why these people? Why the blood?" Adrian looked out over the city, silent for a long moment. "Because they were chosen by circumstance, by weakness. I take only what will not be missed, only what the world will not mourn. My hunger is not cruelty, it is justice in its purest, most honest form." Part XX. Legacy of Darkness. By dawn, Adrian had vanished. Mark and Lila were left on the rooftop, hearts pounding, minds racing. The city awoke unaware of the shadow that had passed above it. Adrian continued to exist, unseen, untouchable. A legend whispered in alleys, in libraries, in the dark corners of humanity's consciousness. Mark wrote in his journal, "He is neither man nor monster. He is a reflection of the darkness we all carry